Howdy y'all, it is me, JSolderPro, once again. On June 5th, the Nintendo Switch 2 releases, and with it the next Mario Kart game called Mario Kart World, which is a big turning point compared to previous entries. First of all, the theming of Mario Kart World is very cool and is easily my favorite to date in the entire series. Every track takes place on one giant interconnected world map, which gives a sense of world building that has largely been absent from Mario Kart up to this point. The only real comparison to this in the entire series is Mario Kart Double Dash, which had tracks visible from each other through various landmarks as background details, but Double Dash's world building was simply a minor detail that did not affect gameplay. World's inclusion of it is far more interesting, with the world map separated into different biomes where every track is placed with purpose. To really enhance this, Cups and Grand Prix have players drive across a part of the world and even drive between the various tracks in between races. The areas between races are called intermission, and it looks like Nintendo has various hazards to keep driving interesting between the locations. This sounds like a fun change to Grand Prix, and it fits very naturally with the interconnected world that Mario Kart World is going for, so I like it. I am happy to say that Versus mode has been confirmed, and it looks like players will be able to race through a selected track for a specified number of laps in a more traditional format. And if so, that is very good news. Whether or not you will be able to play tracks in any order is a concern, since based on what we have seen, it looks like you will drive between tracks, meaning only tracks in proximity may be options in Versus mode. While it would still allow for greater replay value, I personally hope you can play tracks in any order. Speaking of returning modes, Time Trials, of course, is coming back and works just like you would expect. A couple of new modes have also been added, and the first one is Knockout Tour. This mode is players drive from one side of the world to another, where players will drive through various tracks and players below a certain placement will be eliminated. This is unlike anything offered previously and looks really fun, although it also appears like a large time commitment compared to traditional races, so playing on a higher speed class is certainly recommended. The mode that really sells the interconnected world is Free Roam, where players can explore the world freely, and it looks like a blast, being the mode I am the most hyped for personally. Being able to explore anywhere in the world freely is simply an incredible idea that I absolutely love. Players appear to be able to drive on off-road normally in Free Roam, and the ability to drive on water is now a feature of this entry, but more on that later. Both will really make Free Roam shine. Missions of various kinds also look to be scattered across the world, meaning Free Roam doubles as a mission mode of sorts, and as someone who has always wanted mission mode for Mario Kart DS to return, this makes me extremely excited. One final aspect of the interconnected world is that the time of day and weather will change. This is a very nice touch, meaning track environments will have greater variety, and I especially like how colder tracks appear to get snow rather than rain, which is more fitting for them. Overall, the massive interconnected world is absolutely a massive selling point for Mario Kart World, and I am so happy Nintendo is taking the opportunity to make a huge interconnected world Mario Kart game like we have never seen before. This is without a doubt the single biggest selling point of this new entry in the series. With such a big world to explore, there of course needs to be lots of players to explore it, and that is certainly the case. The number of players has been increased from 12 to 24, making it so more players than ever will be racing around, and this is an excellent change. It will make races more chaotic than ever, and in my opinion, that's certainly a good thing. Naturally, a large number of players also means a massive selection of characters who will drive around the world, which is also true. Here are my opinions on the character roster. The additions are certainly strange, with them being a mixed bag and easily the most random Mario Kart roster so far. The additions I really like are Snowman, Penguin, Piranha Plant, Nabbit, and especially Cow, who I love so much that they are the new channel icon. Many of the new additions are simply bizarre, like Fishbone, Conkedor, Sidestepper, and Cataquack, with me not disliking them, but also not really liking them either. either. It is really weird to me that we get picks like those, and yet characters like Funky Kong, Diddy Kong, PD Piranha, and Paratroopa are excluded. But regardless, I am definitely happy with the character selection overall. Something I am not a fan of, however, is the new character selection screen, because now you have to scroll through several pages with every character taking up a good amount of space. But this issue is only amplified once we take into account costume variants. I am very happy to see tour-style costume variants in the game, but the process to unlock them is nothing short of bizarre to me. It sounds like the Dash Burgers from the Yoshi's Diner fast food joint will be found in all tracks, and consuming Dash food located in the drive-thru will convert the player into a costume, unlocking it if it isn't unlocked already. Well, this is a very unique and creative idea. I am not a fan of it. Going out of my way during a race to unlock a costume is simply not an idea I like, and plus, Mario Kart World has kept coins on tracks, so in my opinion, the better approach would be to make it so players can buy costumes for a price using coins they collect during races. Another issue with costumes is that each one is listed individually on the character select menu, which I imagine will cause the menu to become clogged with costumes once players unlock a good amount of them, and that is in addition to the already large character roster. What confuses me most is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had a very well executed character select screen where every character got a small icon that clearly showed who they were, and for characters like Yoshi or Shy Guy with variants, a drop down menu opens that shows all of the variants if that specific character happens to be picked. This seems like it would have worked significantly better, so overall I will say I am not a fan of the character select screen. I do, however, like the idea of Yoshi's Diner appearing all over the game's various tracks, which is another case of interconnected world building. This could also potentially be made into a real-life Yoshi's Diner if Nintendo wants to go down that route, which could definitely be interesting. After selecting the character, players of course need to be able to pick a vehicle, and this leads us to kart selection, which functions like it did in Mario Kart's Double Dash, DS, and Wii, where characters choose their vehicle and that's it. This differs from Mario Kart 7, 8, 8 Deluxe, and Tour, which all allow players to customize their vehicle body, tires, and glider. Casually, this allows players to be creative with how they design their vehicle visually, but I will argue the more interesting advantage is that it allowed more competitive players to better fine-tune stats to their liking. One advantage of vehicle selection over vehicle customization is that selection is simpler, so I imagine less time will be spent picking a vehicle in World compared to 8 Deluxe. And based on a poll I did recently, it seems most of my community are in favor of this change. I certainly prefer vehicle customization, but I see its removal as the result of a change I will be discussing later, so I will discuss this more in a minute. I haven't spent much time looking at various vehicle options since I am much more interested in many other aspects of the game, but from what I have seen, there seems to be both karts and bikes, which is nice to see, and the vehicle options look good overall, with stats clearly being visible during the selection process for players who care about that. The vehicle that stands out the most to me is the bike that looks like Rob, which is very unexpected, but I appreciate the reference. The most notable thing about vehicles in this game is that they change depending on what you are driving on. For example, over water, they turn into water skis. This appears to be a solely visual change, but it is one I really enjoy that makes this game feel more immersive, and considering the emphasis on interconnected geography, I believe that is a good thing. After choosing your vehicle, it's time to play the tracks, which of course is the most important part to any Mario Kart game. But before diving into a hype ranking of every track based on what we have seen so far, let's first address general information that affects the gameplay. First of all, 200cc does not appear to be an option anymore. It is possible it may be and we simply haven't seen it yet, but if truly gone, the exclusion of 200cc is nothing short of baffling. 200cc is amazing in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and is my preferred speed class when replaying tracks, since I like the extra challenge the faster speed has. I see no reason to exclude it, so if true, it is very disappointing. What makes 200cc seemingly being removed even worse is that it would be excellent for Knockout Tour in particular due to the long length of the races in that mode, so hopefully it's included. Looking at something new, you can now charge mini turbos when driving straight, called charge jumps. This does not appear to save time, so no, this is not going to be evolved snaking, but rather, once released, players get a jump which can allow them to reach areas otherwise unobtainable. This has a lot of potential, and I like its addition. I imagine this being very useful with wall riding, which is another addition we need to discuss. Players can now drive on seemingly any wall in the game, and the camera remains at an angle where the fact you are driving on a wall remains obvious, making it even cooler than it would be otherwise. I love this idea because it opens the doors wide open for shortcut potential and interesting track design built around it, but this comes at the cost of anti-gravity, which appears to be excluded. While understandable given the similarity between both of them, I think not merging anti-gravity and wall riding together is a major missed opportunity. In Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, there are many tracks where driving on the ground is transitioned into driving at a noticeable angle or vertically, and I always really enjoyed this seamless transition from regular driving to anti-gravity. This seems to be lost here, with me not seeing any indication of wall riding being forced in any of the tracks, and it rather simply being an option. I always loved the mutual speed boost players would receive if they rammed into an opponent in anti-gravity, and there was no sign of that returning, unfortunately. The advantages are that wall riding is much more universal, with it probably being possible at most tracks in the game to some degree. The camera angle makes the angle at which you are driving at more apparent, and I imagine wall riding will be much easier to include in retro tracks than anti-gravity was. I will once again say I love its inclusion, and I see so much potential with it now being in the series with the charge jump, but the apparent lack of any wall riding being forced and the apparent lack of mutual speed boost has me concerned wall riding may miss its true potential. Regardless, I expect this to be among the best additions in Mario Kart history. Going from a significant addition to one that appears minor at first glance, gliders have been removed and now wings pop out of vehicles on both sides. This appears to simply be a visual change, with gliding functionally remaining the same as recent entries. The replacement of gliders with wings, while very minor, is a change I don't like, since I enjoyed the various glider options in 7, 8, 8 Deluxe, and Tour, which gave some additional personality to gliding, making it more fun in my opinion. This change of gliders to wings is likely why vehicle customization was replaced with vehicle selection, since customizing only the vehicle base and tires doesn't sound like it would justify keeping vehicle customization. Another addition is rail grinding, where players can drive onto a rail or wire, appear to be forced into a state of smart steering, and can charge up a mini turbo that can be released. While I don't see the potential inclusion of it in tracks to be as universal as wall riding, due to it requiring either a rail or wire to be present, this is still a very cool addition I like. Forcing players into smart steering, where they only have to accelerate forward, is very smart, because having to balance the vehicle on a rail or wire would definitely ruin the appeal of this addition. This also gives some potential for some extra shortcuts or side route additions, which I like. If implemented well into tracks, this certainly has potential, and I believe it is being implemented well from what we have seen so far. The final tech addition to discuss is the ability to drive on water, which is definitely an interesting addition. Being able to drive on water is such a cool novelty that I think we have all dreamed about it, and being able to trick on waves in the water is an excellent detail that I absolutely love. If this had been introduced earlier in the series, I would be very thrilled with no complaints, but my issue with it being added in Mario Kart World is that underwater driving has already been established back in Mario Kart 7, and from what we have seen so far, underwater driving looks more fun to me with much greater potential than driving on water does. I have always considered underwater driving to be such an underrated addition. I love the concept of driving underwater and being able to explore what lies beneath the surface, and with vehicle transformations we could have maybe gotten submarines similar to the ones from Water Park for underwater driving, which would have been so cool. I also love how underwater driving has different physics compared to regular driving, which makes it literally feel different and so distinct. Unfortunately, this likely won't be the case with driving on water, since it would make no sense given the context, and it's a shame. Unlike wall riding and anti-gravity, which are too similar, so I believe they should be merged, underwater driving and driving on water are obviously too distinct to be merged together, but I believe they could both work in Mario Kart World together. Driving on water could be used in very shallow water, while underwater driving could be used for deeper areas, with the potential to seamlessly transition from one to another. Based on a certain retro track I will discuss later, I am very confident underwater driving is unfortunately not in Mario Kart World, and because I prefer it over driving on water, I will say that driving on water is an addition I like, but the removal of underwater driving for its inclusion makes me sad. I believe underwater driving has much greater potential to be implemented into tracks, and it appears to be more interesting both conceptually and gameplay-wise than driving on water is to me. But regardless, I do expect to enjoy driving on water in tracks it is implemented in. Another very notable thing to discuss that affects all races are the various items players can use. Many are returning and do not need to be discussed, but there are several additions, and some notable changes made to pre-existing ones that need to be looked at too. First, we have the coin shell, which leaves a trail of coins behind it, and I really like it. This will be a good way of getting more coins during races, especially with the coin cap being increased to 20, but this can also benefit opponents if used improperly. Speaking of coins, there is the coin box that allows opponents to mash it over and over for coins during a limited time, after which the box will expire. While a nice way to collect coins, I am not a fan of having to keep it for a set period similar to the golden mushroom, since this makes it harder to chain into later items. Still looks useful when used properly though. Next, we have the ice flower, which will freeze any opponent's hit. This is a cool solid addition that I like, and it will be useful to briefly stun an opponent. There is also a hammer, which players can throw in an arc and can knock out opponents, but the hammers also stay on the track briefly after landing, making them a hazard for nearby opponents who miss the hammer throws. This is another great addition that I really like. The Mega Mushroom returns and is as epic as it was in Mario Kart Wii, making it a welcome addition. A similar story can be said for the feather, which returns to regular races for the first time since Super Mario Kart, as you can use it to dodge items or have easier access to alternate routes, making it an excellent addition. The final new addition is Kamek, who will transform opponents into something else and cause other effects to the track. This is the most mysterious item addition, and I'm certainly intrigued by it. Looking at pre-existing items, lightning has been nerfed with it not shrinking players for as long, and while this will be nice for front running, I have concerns it may be too weak now. Speaking of items being nerfed, the bullet bill also appears to have been nerfed compared to previous games, with it seeming to last for less time when used, and it doesn't appear to knock out opponents anymore, instead pushing them to the side. I have always loved the bullet bill both conceptually and gameplay wise, and these nerfs definitely make the item worse. With both the lightning and bullet bill appearing to be nerfed, I am convinced Nintendo may be making previously powerful items that helped with comebacks too weak, but I believe how true or false this fear is can only be determined once I play the game. The final change related to items is that now you can carry items behind you without having to keep a button held down, which I really like. Overall, it sounds like Mario Kart World knows what it is doing in regard to new and returning items, but I have some concerns regarding item balance. The final general feature that needs to be discussed is the ability to rewind, where players can roll back time for themselves and correct a mistake. Personally, I absolutely hate this, since it takes away punishment for making a mistake in the traditional sense, although it seems there is a punishment for using it which at least attempts to balance it. Rewind will only affect the player who uses it and not opponents, meaning using it does come with the penalty of losing time, which is as significant in a racing game like Mario Kart World is. Even with the attempt at balancing it, I absolutely hate this addition since it cheapens risk versus reward, but so long as it isn't available online, I won't mind it too much. With general gameplay changes discussed, it's time to move on to the Grand Prix Cups that host the tracks, and these are very interesting. There are a total of 7 cups that appear to be unlocked by default, and in order they are the Mushroom, Flower, Star, Shell, Banana, Leaf, and Lightning, with each cup having 4 tracks like has been established since Mario Kart 64, making a total of 28 tracks. If you are familiar with Mario Kart, these cups might sound familiar because they are the 7 that have been used since Mario Kart DS onwards for Nitro and Retro tracks, except there is a notable exception. The Special Cup is missing, but the Mario Kart World Direct states Rainbow Road is unlockable, and it being at the end of the Special Cup makes sense since this has been the case since Super Mario Kart. There being more than 28 tracks is also supported by looking at the world map, where a total of 30 track icons are shown across the map, indicating 30 tracks are present. Adding the Special Cup explains why the total is more than 28 tracks, but a new issue arises since there should be 32 track icons. The reason for the shortcoming is that 2 of the tracks actually appear in 2 separate cups, with players driving around them on a different route each time, and the 2 tracks in question are Crown City and Peach Stadium. This is how the Tour City tracks were handled in Mario Kart Tour, with each city having multiple standalone variants, each with a different route, and I have mixed opinions. On one hand, going through the same location in a different route adds extra interconnectedness to the world's tracks, which certainly works to the game's benefit. On the other hand, I have never cared for the different Tour City track variants in Isolation and Tour, but I really like them combined in one large lap-changing track in 8 Deluxe. I wonder if I may wish both layouts were combined into one layout for both tracks, and that 2 new or returning tracks were added instead, but I believe this is impossible to say before playing the tracks for myself. Regarding the cups themselves, here are all 8 Grand Prix cups in order with all tracks listed according to the Mario Kart Wiki. The first 4 have been confirmed through the Nintendo Switch 2 Directs, while the other 4 have been figured out using track icon map analysis, and by that I mean literally connecting tracks together. This does mean the last 4 may be incorrect unless confirmed elsewhere that I am unaware of, but regardless, let's assume this is correct for the sake of analysis. First of all, the concept of Nitro and Retro tracks are dead, with all but the first 2 cups having a mix of both. This was first done in Mario Kart 8 with DLC, which later was ported to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's base game, but having this at the launch of the game is very different and I'll argue significant. I personally love this change because it eliminates a barrier previously established between Nitro and Retro tracks, which makes sense for an interconnected world like what Mario Kart World is going for. Going along with this, Retro abbreviations before Retro tracks that previously represented what game a certain track is from are gone. And while a minor change, this is certainly a change I dislike. The lack of abbreviations make it impossible to tell if a track is a Nitro or Retro unless you recognize a name from a previous entry, and even that is not always reliable. Listed on screen is every track name that is repeated across multiple entries, excluding remakes, and the issue is clear. This is a minor change since it has no effect on gameplay, and plus, telling the tracks apart is easy once you play the track then compare it for the most part, but regardless, this is a change I do not agree with. Several tracks in this game share names, and each case will be discussed as it comes up. It is also important to mention that Retro tracks from the same entry can now appear in the same cup, as shown with both Desert Hills and Airship Fortress and Flower, as well as both Peach Beach and Dino Dino Jungle and Banana. This change makes a lot of sense, and I support it. Another thing to discuss is track difficulty, which appears to be all over the place. of-longplays. While there have been some notable jumps in difficulty in previous entries, Mario Kart World seems to have really bad difficulty jumps throughout its cups. Airship Fortress at the end of Flower seems early, but issues become obvious once we get to the last two cups. Moo Moo Meadow starts the Lightning Cup, Toad's Factory is iconic but fairly easy, and yet it's right before Bowser's Castle, which ends the cup before Special for the first time since Mario Kart 64. In the Special Cup, we have a combination of the first three SNES Mario circuits, meaning Mario Circuit 3 is in the final cup of the game, like it was in Mario Kart Wii, which is bizarre but also very interesting. This is somewhat understandable since cups have to allow for a smooth transition between tracks, meaning locations need to be side by side, but I believe more care could have been put into the difficulty curve of the cups. The final thing related to cups to discuss is that there are no retro tracks from Mario Kart Super Circuit nor Mario Kart 8. The lack of any Wii U tracks is the most understandable given we have been playing them as Nitro tracks since 2014. And when considering Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will be playable on the Nintendo Switch 2, it's not difficult to understand the reasoning for their exclusion. Even with that considered, I still think one should have appeared solely for representation's sake, and as I'll discuss later, one in particular has a lot of potential for world building, so I see it as a missed opportunity. On the other hand, Mario Kart Super Circuit not receiving a single retro track is nothing short of baffling. If Sky High Sunday is considered a Switch track, then that means that Mario Kart Tour also got excluded. But this would be very understandable if every Tour track was remade in the Booster Course Pass, which is almost the case. In reality, whether Sky Sunday is a Tour track or not is irrelevant in this case because one Tour Nitro did not get remade in the Booster Course Pass, and it would have been the most logical choice for Mario Kart Tour. So its exclusion is once again baffling. With all of that information addressed, it is finally time to rank every Mario Kart World track by hype. I do not expect this to be what my final track ranking for the tracks will be once I play the game, but rather is simply how hyped I am for each track. It is worth acknowledging the intermission zones appear to have tracks you drive through, like Vanilla Lake 1 for example, despite it not being listed as a track in any of the cups. These intermission tracks will not be discussed. With all of that established, let's do this, starting off with the only track I am not hyped for at all. Number 32, Desert Hills. This track last appeared in Mario Kart Wii, so I appreciate its inclusion in that respect, but regardless, this seems like the most puzzling retro track choice they could have made. Both Yoshi Desert and Dry Dry Ruins haven't been remade besides Mario Kart Tour, and I believe both would have been better choices. Yoshi Desert would have given Super Circuit some needed representation, while Dry Dry Ruins is my personal favorite desert track in the entire series. Unfortunately, I am not a fan of the original Desert Hills, and based on the footage available, this remake looks like it may be worse than the original. The Pokies seem to be removed and replaced with Battleton enemies, while the crazy hills at the end of the track appear to be smoothed out, making the entire area one gradual slope upwards. I always looked forward to the ending hills part in the original, but I don't see that appeal in this footage. One important note is that you appear to race the track backwards, which is very interesting, but I am not convinced this improves the track and may actually do the opposite. It is also worth noting that the Desert Hills footage is in Knockout Tour, so during a regular race, the track may not be driven backwards, but even still, the gameplay still looks like a downgrade. Sadly, this is the one track I am not hyped for at all in Mario Kart World. Moving onwards to tracks I am slightly hyped for, number 31, Moo Moo Meadows. This is another retro track pick that puzzles me since it was just in Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, meaning we've been playing this track for years. But unlike Desert Hills, I consider this a good track in previous versions, and I have confidence World is improving it as well. There is now a ramp players trick off of to enter the cow herd section, and some hay bale obstacles have been added, which is a nice touch. These are appreciated additions to the track, while the ending looks to be unchanged, which is fine by me. Moo Moo Farm could have been interesting instead, but to be fair, it is worse than Meadows and maybe better as an intermission track. My main sadness with Meadows being remade is that we are getting no new Moo Moo track, which is very overdue. Number 30, Mario Bros Circuit. The Nitro I am the least hyped for also happens to be the opening track of the game, and I will say, as someone who generally dislikes Mario Kart openers, this track looks okay overall. I like the theming of the track, and I also really like how the track incorporates rail grinding, wall riding, and gliding. Considering this is the first track of the game, it's really good that the game is going ahead and introducing these things really early. My main issue with this track, however, is there's simply not much of anything going on throughout large chunks of it, which is typical of opening tracks, but it's still an issue regardless. I have confidence this will be a track I like at least somewhat, making it, at worst, the third best opener in the series, but whether it will beat out GCN Luigi Circuit and Wii U Mario Kart Stadium will be answered once I play it. Number 29, Peach Beach. This is another retro last remade in Wii, meaning it's been a while since we've seen it, and it's another retro track I consider good, both of which certainly work to the track's favor. We haven't seen much footage of it, but from what we have seen, the threat of the deep water from the original appears to be gone, as well as the tide gimmick. This sounds worse until considering there are still cataquacks on the beach, and there are now Shy Guys riding water skis on the water, making it so the water is still dangerous. I am not sure whether I like this change or not, but gameplay will be necessary to decide. I have also heard rumors that this remake may have lap changing, and you may go inside the palace as well. Both would be really cool additions, but both are speculation from what I can tell, and so don't hold as much weight for hype compared to if they were confirmed. Number 28, Sky High Sunday. As stated earlier, I'm not sure whether Nintendo considers this a tour or Switch track, but perhaps the answer this entire time is that Nintendo doesn't care, and neither should we. Regardless, what really matters is the track itself, and despite just appearing for the first time in the Booster Course Pass and tour around the same time, I will argue this along with Yoshi's Island and Squeaky Clean Sprint make a lot of sense to remake, since they are newer and we've seen them for the least amount of time out of any of the tracks in 8 Deluxe. Choosing Sky High Sunday over the other two alternatives seems crazy, but I will say the track certainly looks to be improved in World. Players can now drive on the sidewalls, rail grinding has been added, and new side routes have been added too. The removal of underwater physics and anti-gravity physics from the track are both unfortunate, but I personally don't think either of them are going to kill this remake by any means. In fact, I have no doubt this is an improvement, and I believe the entire feel of this track is going to be changed for the better in this remake. Moving onwards to tracks I am moderately hyped for. Number 27, Mario Circuit. This is the first of several examples of a Mario Kart World track that shares a name with other Nitro tracks in the series, and I will argue this is the second most confusing case because it is a remake of SNES Mario Circuits 1 through 3, which is not obvious at all based on the name alone. To be fair, even with a SNES prefix in front of it, it would still be confusing because SNES Mario Circuit 4 is excluded from this remake, and I don't like that. I definitely think it should have been included, not only because it is a SNES Mario Circuit and we're getting the other three, but also because I think this track honestly would be fine being a little bit longer, and SNES Mario Circuit 4 would only add one additional lap, which in my opinion would actually benefit this track and not harm it. Looking at the three SNES Mario Circuits included in the track, Mario Circuit 1 is extremely basic. The main thing it offers is some shortcut potential, and that's about it really. I will say it is cool to have this track back since it was last remade in Mario Kart DS, excluding the Tour remake, so I am happy to see it back in that respect, but this remains as basic as ever. Mario Circuit 2 is more interesting, with the highlight of course being the jump the track is known for. Unfortunately, Mario Kart 7's edition of a glider has not carried over into this remake, and instead, the jump is back to being a boost jump like it was in the original. While very unfortunate and a change I don't like, it's also understandable based on this footage, which showcases just how broken having a glider jump would actually be. The final lap is Mario Circuit 3, and it certainly looks like the most interesting lap of the bunch, having the most complex layout and also the most interesting opportunities for shortcut potential. I love the seamless transitions that allow all three SNES Mario circuits to work together, and I will say, despite not being a big fan of any of these individually, I do think this track has potential to be genuinely good. Number 26, Choco Mountain. This is the final retro track that was remade in 8 Deluxe, and as I already stated prior, I am not a fan of overlap with 8 Deluxe remakes in World. That being said, Choco Mountain was significantly improved in Tour and 8 Deluxe, and looks to be completely changed again in World, making this very distinct from any previous version. The mountain aesthetic seems far less prominent than previous versions. It has a far more industrial feel to it, which makes sense due to its close proximity to a track I will be ranking much later, and Chargin' Chucks are now hazards that rampage across part of the track, which is a funny addition that I like. Happy to say the boulder section is retained, and overall this looks like a fun track. This is certainly a bold remake, and while I have heard many praise this remake, I'm personally skeptical. I believe the industrial theming may be done too much at the cost of the mountain visuals the track is known for, and that doesn't sit right with me. I have no doubts I will enjoy this remake, but I am not convinced I will consider it better than the remake in 8 Deluxe. Number 25, Peach Stadium Special. Peach Stadium is a very cool theme, with me loving the idea of Peach owning a stadium of some kind and us racing through it. Looking at the Special Cup version, which we actually have racing footage of, it reminds me of Wii U Mario Circuit with the spiral that you go down. I am not convinced the Special Cup version is a worthy penultimate track to Rainbow Road, but regardless, on its own, it looks fun and very interesting. Number 24, Peach Stadium Shell. I tried my best to find footage for all of the tracks, but unfortunately, all I was able to find for the Shell version of Peach Stadium is this screenshot and some battle mode footage, which gives an idea for the location's theming, but not really gameplay. I like the concept of a train terminal being used for a Mario Kart track, and it reminds me of Super Bell Subway, which is one of my favorite Wii U Nitros. I sadly don't have enough information to place this any higher, but this is certainly intriguing. Number 23, Crown City Shell. The start is pretty cool, with players dodging traffic, which includes a modern version of mushroom carts from Double Dash that shoot out mushrooms for players, which is awesome, as well as some bob-omb cars. Sadly, the rest of the track seems surprisingly barren and lifeless given the city theming, which hurts my hype for it significantly. Now is a good time to mention that traffic is very tame, like it is in Tour, and running into most vehicles seems to have little effect on the player. This makes traffic far less threatening and lessens the appeal of tracks like this as a result, which is very unfortunate. Unlike Peach Stadium, where both versions were ranked side by side, the Mushroom Cup version of Crown City will be ranked much later because it looks significantly more interesting. Number 22, Koopa Troopa Beach. This is another confusing naming case, and I will argue it is the most confusing naming case, though this would be confusing even with a retro prefix. This track shares its name with N64 Koopa Troopa Beach, which may make you assume it's a remake of that track, but nope, it's not. This instead appears to be a remake of the SNES Koopa Beach tracks, and the weird naming is likely due to Mario Kart Tour changing the names from Koopa Beach to Koopa Troopa Beach. To make things even more confusing, it looks like Koopa Beach 1 may only be driven through during intermission, making this really a Koopa Beach 2 remake, despite both tracks being remade. We unfortunately haven't seen much of this track, but I have always considered Koopa Beach 2 as one of the SNES tracks with the most potential for a good remake, and it looks like it is finally being given good treatment with plenty of added detail. I am very curious with how the water section with the holes will work in World, or if another hazard like Cheep Cheeps or water ski Shy Guys will replace them instead. This remake has tons of potential and looks to absolutely be a significant improvement. Even still, Koopa Beach 2 is an oval more or less, meaning this track will likely have the most basic layout of any of the tracks in the game, which hurts my hype for it somewhat. One last detail to point out before moving on is that a track unrelated to this one, and that will be ranked much later in the list, is visible in the distance in this image. This confirms that tracks will be visible from each other if they are in close enough proximity, which makes a lot of sense with the interconnected world Mario Kart World is going for, and I especially appreciate this since it's a callback to how Mario Kart Double Dash connected its tracks 2 decades ago. Number 21, Dandelion Depths. Of all the tracks the game has to offer, this seems to be the most all over the place, with the outside featuring what looks like giant trees, kinda like Wooded Kingdom, there then being a cave section you drive into, and then an even deeper cave section with some water you drive on. This track is so all over the place, it's hard to really find a coherent theme to it, and plus the name makes the least amount of sense to me of any of the tracks. Regardless of the confusion, it still looks like a fun track for what it is, and I certainly look forward to playing it. Number 20, DK Pass. This has always stood out as a track I seem to like more than most in the community, so I am very happy to see its return with some additions. Most notably, the ending now has a Shy Guy snowboard section like the one from DK Summit, and while the track didn't require the addition, I certainly like its inclusion regardless. The one downside about this remake is that the special item box that always gave triple mushrooms or a star appears to be removed in this remake, since the snowy hill it was on top of also seems to be gone. And if true, that is very unfortunate. While a small detail, the special item box is one of my favorite Mario Kart secrets, so I hope it is kept in some kind of capacity. Regardless, the removal of one item box certainly won't override the snowboard edition, so DK Pass looks to certainly be an improvement. Moving onwards to tracks I am very hyped for. Number 19. Salty Speedway. The first thing I thought of when I saw this track was Venice, Italy, because of the urban city around what looks like canals you drive through over water. Despite the lack of underwater driving on water still looks very fun, and that seems to be the main appeal for this track. The canals look very interesting, and it also looks like players drive some around the city. Both combined sound very interesting. Number 18, Shy Guy Bazaar. How this track was never remade in 8 nor 8 Deluxe, I will never understand, but thankfully we are finally getting its grand return, and it's absolutely beautiful. This was an amazing track in 7, and it looks to be very similar to how it was originally. Rail grinding has been added, but the big new addition that makes me very excited about its return is that now you can drive through a new palace, which looks incredible. This reminds me of driving through Peach's Castle in 3DS Mario Circuit, except it is significantly cooler. The palace is shown in free roam, but is not present in the comparison footage, so I am unsure if it is free roam exclusive or something of that nature. Regardless, evidence of being able to race through the palace makes me very hyped, and Shy Guy Bazaar is already an amazing track to begin with. Number 17, Wario Shipyard. This is the retro track that makes me certain underwater driving is unfortunately excluded from Mario Kart World, since this had plenty of underwater driving in 7 and Tour, but now has none. Instead, players drive on the surface of water and can trick off tons of waves, which looks very fun. The removal of underwater driving changes the feel of this track significantly, and I'm not sure if that's for the better. The water pipe hazards from the original seem to be gone without a replacement, and in general, the remake looks to be easier, which I'm generally not a fan of in remakes. The shipwreck portion remains extremely fun, and visually the track is nothing short of stunning. It is very important to restate that the time of day and weather will change, and while some tracks may be immune to the changes, it is fair to assume most, if not all, the tracks are affected, meaning this track likely won't always be set at nighttime during a rain shower. Visually, this remake is 100% an improvement, but I have concerns the gameplay may be a downgrade. Nonetheless, I love the the original, and I expect to really like or love this remake. This will be the true test to see whether I prefer underwater driving or driving on water once I play the game. Number 16, Faraway Oasis. Surprisingly, Mario Kart has never really explored a Savannah theme until now, and I'm very happy it is. From the footage we've seen, this looks like a fairly chill track carried by its theming, but that's fine by me. This is another track where players are driving on land and sometimes over water, which is very cool, and my favorite part is near the end where players go over this massive waterfall. While there are plenty of animals on the sides, none of them seem to affect gameplay, which seems like a major missed opportunity for this track. Number 15, Cheep Falls. This is a new addition to the Cheep tracks of Mario Kart, with the others being Cheep Island, Cheep Beach, and Cheep Lagoon. I'm happy to say that Cheep Falls looks to be the best so far, and looks to be the track with the best execution of water driving from what we have seen. The theming is beautiful, reminding me of autumn, similar to Maple Treeway, and best of all, Cheeps look like they will be hazards players have to dodge as they jump out of the water. This is such a creative track concept, and I can't wait to play it. Number 14, Starview Peak. This is a similar case to Faraway Oasis, where the theming looks to be the main appeal over the gameplay, but regardless, it looks really fun. Wintry tracks have some of my favorite theming typically, and this is no exception, with it visually looking gorgeous. There looks to be a focus on star boost rings around the track, which give players a speed boost when they travel through one, and this is really cool. It looks like players once again drive on top of water, but instead of a river, it is on platforms in the sky, and it gives a similar vibe to infinity pools, which I love. The gliding section, also utilizing boost rings, makes it look really fun too. Number 13, Whistle Stop Summit. My first impression of this track was Calamari Desert, but actually good, and that impression has stuck around since. Players get to drive over train tracks, which has a train driving down it, and players appear to be able to land on the train and trick off of it, which is awesome. The train rails offer plenty of rail grinding opportunity, with this being the track that has the most rail grinding opportunities from what we've seen. This track looks very fun, and I'm happy Nintendo is making another train track that offers plenty of tech opportunities. Number 12, Wario Stadium. This is yet another case of a naming conflict, and this is also my prime example for why retro prefixes should have been kept. Wario Stadium is the name of a track for Mario Kart 64, but is also the name of a track for Mario Kart DS, and even based on the gameplay, it is hard to tell which it is because the gameplay is significantly different from both. Some players even believe this was a new track called Wario Stadium once it was revealed, but many were quick to recognize that N64 Wario Stadium made the most sense, and this turned out to be what the track is. Of all the never remade tracks in Mario Kart, I will argue N64 Wario Stadium is the most infamous, being the only N64 track to have never been remade until now. I have heard many claim the layout being simplified as another Sky Garden or Sunset Wilds, but I will argue this is an extreme exaggeration. Yes, the layout is simplified similar to how Sky Garden and Sunset Wilds were in Tour and 8 Deluxe, but the difference here is that both Sky Garden and Sunset Wilds were love tracks that didn't have any length issues, while N64 Wario Stadium is hated by many in the community and is infamous for not only being really long, but also really boring to race on. Considering only one lap is played in the proper track itself in Grand Prix, while the other 2 laps are played in intermission getting to the track, it seems crazy to suggest the track would have been too long in Mario Kart World. The reason could be versus mode, which allows players to race 3 laps in one track like is common in Mario Kart. But even then, if the remake was executed properly, it could have justified the long length of the track. GCN Rainbow Road is among my favorite tracks in the entire series, and its length is actually comparable to the original N64 Wario Stadium. The difference is that GCN Rainbow Road offers much greater variety in gameplay, it's much more difficult, its track design is more complex, and it offers some of the best theming of any track in the entire series, making its length not an issue in my opinion. This remake adds a lot of hills around the track that can be tricked off of, some patches of mud have been added that can act as small off-road shortcuts, and the massive ending jump now has plenty of boost panels leading up to it and is sharply inclined with fire erupting from massive torches on all sides as you jump off of it, making it feel like the true climax it was always meant to be. The simplified layout certainly holds this remake back compared to what it could have been, and ironically, the track known for taking too long now looks to be a bit too short in Grand Prix, though this likely won't be an issue in Versus mode since you race around the track multiple times. I also wish this remake added more to the track besides just a ton of hills you trick off of, like half pipes, fire wheels, or mechanical piranha plants as some examples. Even with the missed opportunities, this is without a doubt a significant improvement over the original, and I am very excited to play it. If this remake used the original layout and offered greater variety in gameplay, it almost certainly would be in my top 10. Number 11, Crown City Mushroom. The Mushroom Cup version of Crown City takes players through Crown City, with skyscrapers all around, which looks absolutely epic, but what really steals the show is the fact that players get to travel up through a building and then get to parkour on top of buildings and even through an active construction site, which is simply incredible. I love the glider that has players slowly glide to the massive straightaway streets below at the end of the track as well. This track reminds me a lot of Metro Kingdom from Super Mario Odyssey, which is a very good thing since I love Metro Kingdom. Moving onwards to the tracks I am the most hyped for, and coincidentally also starting off the top 10, we have number 10, Dino Dino Jungle. I have always loved Dino Dino Jungle, but I've always felt like the dino theme could be expanded upon, which is why I was pleasantly shocked when I saw what Nintendo has done to this track in Mario Kart World. There are now more dinosaurs around the track, with several of them being hazards that must be avoided. And you can even drive on some of the dinosaurs, which is absolutely incredible, including what looks like a new shortcut in the split bridges section, where you can trick off of the back of a dinosaur. The entire remake has a feeling of a Jurassic World film, which is only amplified by what looks like some kind of dinosaur research facility, which once again screams Jurassic World, which I love so much. Of all the previously remade retro tracks in Mario Kart World, this is hands down the most justified, because not only was it not remade in 8 nor 8 Deluxe, but it also looks to be a significant improvement to a track that was already a masterpiece. I have historically favored DK Mountain over Dino Dino Jungle, but this remake certainly makes it a more even comparison, and dare I say, it may tip the scale in favor of Dino Dino Jungle. Number 9, Acorn Heights. This track reminds me of Wild Woods, and despite considering that track amazing, this looks significantly better. Players drive in a massive forest filled with giant vegetation and have to travel on tree branches, leaves, and even dodge acorns in the huge split path portion. This has so much potential for crazy gameplay, and the theming is nothing short of incredible. The inclusion of red bouncy mushrooms makes a lot of sense and is a nice touch that I love. Number 8, Dry Bones Burnout. Finding any footage for this track besides the clip from one of the directs was an absolute nightmare, but I was luckily able to find a YouTube short, which is why the footage is cropped weirdly. I am very happy I found it because this track looks absolutely incredible. The theming is excellent, with there being tons of lava and bones everywhere that you drive on, but what really makes the track stand out so much to me is the absurd number of routes you can take. This track looks to have multiple routes at all times and seems to be an involved and advanced execution of what Ice Ice Outpost attempted to do. I will be shocked if I don't end up loving this track once I play it. Number 7, Great Block Ruins. Besides having the biggest mouthful of a name out of every track in this game, this track has an absolutely incredible theme of ruins, of a giant block in the sky, sky. This feels like a combination of Sky Garden and Thwomp Ruins, which I absolutely love, and the gameplay looks to be a blast from what we've seen as well. Number 6, Bowser's Castle. While this track does share its name with tracks from other games, this is typical, so it's not an issue of any kind. Bowser's Castle looks to have some industrial elements built into it, which is very cool, but the part that shocks me is in the sky, where players are launched into a thunderstorm over a volcano, where a massive fiery Bowser face appears out of the clouds and proceeds to make fireballs rain all over the track as it wraps around. The fire makes a lot of sense due to the track taking place in and above a volcano, and of course Bowser is traditionally associated with fire, which fits him well. Players are alerted where the fireballs will land due to it being indicated on the track, which I really appreciate, and overall this sky section really feels like the thunderstorm section of Cloud Top Cruise, but take it to the next level. This track looks absolutely incredible and I can't wait to play it. Number 5, Rainbow Road. Of all the tracks in the game, this is the one that we know the least about. We know Rainbow Road exists in this game, we know the track is unlockable, we know this is the track icon, and assuming the Super Mario Wiki is correct, the track ends the Special Cup, which is also likely unlockable. All of this is to say, we really have no clue about this track other than it exists, and considering Rainbow Roads take place in the sky or in space, we also have no idea as to how we will transition from Peach Stadium Special to it. My guess is that we will go off a massive cannon during intermission like is shown here. Rainbow Roads historically are a fairly safe bet for being a really good track, and with only a couple of exceptions, I really like or love every Rainbow Road track in the series, including ones like DS or Wii U Rainbow Road that seem to go under the radar compared to others in the series. One thing I really look forward to is the view below the track. GCN Rainbow Road is famous for taking place above Mushroom City, and here we have a Rainbow Road taking place above a massive interconnected world, and I love the idea of this Rainbow Road having a beautiful view of the entire world below it. This has potential to dethrone the outside of Peach's castle being possible to explore in N64 Royal Raceway, and become my new favorite detail in Mario Kart history. I really don't know what to expect, but I am regardless very excited to try it, and if Nintendo's track record is anything to go by, I will probably love whatever the result ends up being. Number 4, Toad's Factory. How this track has never been remade before now is beyond me, but finally, one of the most creative and unique concepts for a track in Mario Kart history from the fan favorite Mario Kart Wii is finally getting a well-deserved remake. It's about time! Changes to this track appear very minimal, with the only ones that stand out being a new set of item boxes accessible by a wall ride at the start of the track. The crates from the conveyor belts appear to be replaced with item boxes. There's a new wire players can grind on, and the lake at the end of the track has been replaced with mud, making it much easier to perform an ending shortcut. This looks nearly identical to the original, and considering how incredible and fun the original is, I'm happy that's the case. Number 3, Airship Fortress. My most hyped retro track is none other than the beloved Airship Fortress. As much as I love Toad's Factory, I have always considered Airship Fortress as a superior track, and it looks like that will likely remain the case in Mario Kart World. I have always loved the theme of Airship Fortress, and I'm very happy World changed towards lava exterior, back to something more like what was present in DS and 7. The exterior looks cooler than ever, and the chains as you board the airship can be rail grinded, which is a nice touch. The interior also looks very interesting, with it being more detailed than DS and 7, though I am sad the tavern from Tour was not brought back. A blueprint of a Bonzi bill has been added to one of the walls inside the airship, and the fire remains a hazard in the engine room, which I love. Shooting out of the cannon takes players into the tower with a hole through it, which has a more detailed interior, but otherwise is the same as it always has been. The last change is a new patch of mud added to the end of the track, replacing a crack in the road, which adds a small off-road shortcut to the track. This looks just as fun as previous versions, and I am so so excited to play Airship Fortress and Mario Kart World. Impressively, there are 2 Nitro tracks I am even more hyped for. Number 2, Boo Cinema. This track takes place in a haunted movie theater, and the thing that really makes this track stand out is the fact that players drive into the theater screen and literally into a horror movie being played, complete with a 3, 2, 1 countdown. This concept is so incredible, it alone guaranteed a placement in the top 5, and to say I love it would be an understatement. The gameplay looks really fun, with both wall riding and rail grinding being featured, and I love how players jump out of the film back into the theater, where many boos watch them pass by. Guess you could say the film experience is so shocking it's to die for. Despite how hyped I am for Boo Cinema, there is one Nitro track I am even more hyped for. My most hyped Mario Kart World track is number 1, DK Spaceport. As much as Boo Cinema shocked me and blew me away, DK Spaceport did that even more, with it being a gigantic arcade Donkey Kong barrel stage made into a Mario Kart track. An enormous robotic Donkey Kong jumps up the stage during the race, and along the way, players must dodge giant barrels and fire snakes that come from burning barrels. The barrel hazards around the track can be broken with shells, which is interesting, and I like the feature. The track also offers plenty of wall riding and rail grinding opportunities, with the track design and concept being unlike anything previously in Mario Kart. So much so, it truly is no comparison material. The track is so massive that players spend 5 laps scaling up it, but like GCN Rainbow Road, it offers great variety in gameplay and looks to remain engaging throughout, so the length doesn't seem to be an issue in my opinion. The final lap of the track is players face the enormous robotic Donkey Kong head on, where he will throw giant barrels that appear to track player movement to make them harder to dodge, and you have to pass underneath him to complete the race. DK Spaceport is the only track in the entire Mario Kart series to feel like a boss fight from beginning to end, and that plus both the incredible theming and gameplay is why DK Spaceport has earned the number 1 spot for the Mario Kart World track I am the most hyped for. It is very clear I am super hyped for Mario Kart World's track selection overall, with only 1 track I am not hyped for, 4 tracks I am barely hyped for, 8 tracks I am moderately hyped for, 9 tracks I am very hyped for, and 10 tracks I am the most hyped for. Despite offering only 32 tracks, I will say the track quality looks very good overall, and while 32 tracks sounds underwhelming compared to the 96 tracks Mario Kart 8 Deluxe offers, keep in mind Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had 48 tracks prior to the Booster Course Pass, and even that was a port of Mario Kart 8's track selection. Mario Kart 8 at launch had 32 tracks, with another 16 coming soon after release in the form of DLC. So really, World is on par with the number of tracks 8 had at launch, which I believe is the fairest comparison. Considering Mario Kart World does have to compete against Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and many casual players will simply compare World's 32 tracks to 8 Deluxe's 96 tracks regardless, I believe DLC with more tracks is very likely in the future, and I believe it is worth exploring how the DLC may be executed. Considering Mario Kart World is based all around one massive interconnected world, DLC adding tracks in the form of one massive new island with some small ones around it makes the most sense to me. I think it would make the most sense to include both Nitro and Retro tracks, and while I will not focus on Nitro tracks here, a brief look into Retro tracks is worthwhile. This would be a big opportunity to take advantage of Double Dash's world building by including Mushroom City and have GCN Rainbow Road take place above it as the finale of the DLC. This would be perfect considering it has the most famous example of world building in Mario Kart history up to this point. Considering Mushroom City and Mushroom Bridge are both visible from each other, perhaps Mushroom Bridge could be included as well, but I will argue it would would be better to prioritize Mario Coliseum rather than remaking both GCN traffic tracks, especially when considering Wario Coliseum has never been remade and is beloved by fans. In theory, perhaps all 4 could be in DLC, but 4 GCN tracks sounds crazy. To be fair, Nintendo didn't seem concerned with balance in base game in regard to retro tracks, so maybe they would be willing to. Another thought that stands out immediately is both Woohoo Loop and Maka Woohoo from Mario Kart 7, since both occur on Woohoo Island. This would also be an opportunity to bring back Woohoo Town as a battle course, though I would prefer Honeybee Hive be remade instead. The last track which stands out as one that would be perfect in this DLC is actually a Wii U one, specifically Sunshine Airport. This is a popular Wii U track, and while it has anti-gravity in 8, the track could work fine without anti-gravity included, considering World has more extreme angles driven normally. While this track is fun, the main reason I would love to see it return is the world building potential this track would bring to the game. In Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, there are 4 airplane companies that all fly planes from Sunshine Airport, and they all have advertisements in many of the game's tracks, with there even being a flight display showing the flights to different tracks. This is no more than a world building detail in 8 and 8 Deluxe, but could be taken to the next level in Mario Kart World, where planes could fly between tracks and be visible in the sky when racing. Perhaps smaller airports could be set up around the new island, or maybe even the original island if we are very lucky, and they could be used as a faster form of travel in free roam. A similar idea could work with Super Bell Subway with underground trains connecting the world, but I believe planes would be cooler personally. I admit this is very bold and probably won't happen, but there's tons of potential with DLC in my opinion. DLC would also give Super Circuit an opportunity to finally be represented, and considering its exclusion from base game, I believe 2 tracks are deserved minimum. My point in talking about DLC ideas is to make it clear that there is tons of potential for fun DLC content to be added later in World, and I haven't even mentioned the potential for characters or anything of that nature, which is also a possibility. Players should keep this in mind when thinking of there only being 32 tracks in the game. Looking at the 32 tracks the game offers currently, here are the Knockout Tour rallies, which look like this according to the Super Mario Wiki. Once again, I am not sure if these are 100% accurate, but regardless, it is very interesting how there are 8 Knockout Tour rallies, like how there are 8 Grand Prix Cups, but unlike Grand Prix, which have 4 tracks each, every Knockout Tour rally has 6 tracks each, which makes sense. The point of Knockout Tour is to explore a large part of the world, going from one side to another, so more tracks being featured in it is to be expected. This also explains why Knockout Tour races last longer than a full Grand Prix. Due to featuring 48 tracks and there only being 32 tracks in the game, there are some repeated tracks included, with many being repeated twice. Interestingly, not every track is included because Rainbow Road is excluded from all 8 Knockout Tour rallies, and while unfortunate, this also makes some sense due to the uncertainty of how players will get to Rainbow Road during Grand Prix, an issue which would also exist in Knockout Tour as well. I do believe this issue could be worked around, and it's a shame it isn't. It's hard to judge which Knockout Tour rallies I'm more hyped for, so I'm not going to make a hype ranking of all the Knockout Tour rallies, but I will say I do look forward to Knockout Tour in general, and I think it's going to add a lot of replay value to this game. When exploring the world in any mode, the game's visuals will be obvious, and I like them. Admittedly, I am generally not picky when it comes to video game visuals, but I do like Mario Kart World's art style. The various locations you travel through look very nice and have a realistic tone, which I'll argue fits the game's interconnected geography theme very well. The lighting looks well done, the visuals are nicely detailed, and I really have no complaints. The dynamic time of day and dynamic weather look to only enhance the visual appeal, which I love. Once you've played the tracks and the various modes discussed so far, you may decide you want even more variety. And luckily for you, Battle Mode is of course returning, which is to be expected since it's been a staple since Super Mario Kart. Based on what we know so far, Battle Mode will have 2 ways to play it, with those being Balloon Battle and Coin Runners. If this sounds familiar, that is because those were the options for both Wii and 7 for Battle Mode. As far as I could tell, nothing has been clarified about Coin Runners, runners, but considering it is largely identical in Wii 7 and 8 Deluxe, I believe it is fair to assume it will function the same as it always has. I can't say I'm excited for coin runners, but it's been alright in previous entries, and I expect the same in World. Balloon Battle, on the other hand, sounds interesting, since it sounds like it will be last man standing style like it was prior to Wii, where players will be eliminated once they run out of balloons, and whoever is last remaining wins. This is significantly better than the time balloon battle that we've had from Mario Kart Wii onwards, where players will respawn if they run out of balloons, which isn't nearly as tense and overall isn't as fun, an opinion which most in my community seem to agree with. This was changed in Mario Kart Tour to work like last man standing, but a timer was added to prevent the game from going on for an eternity, which is a nice touch. It sounds like World is copying Tour, and this is good for online play, especially to prevent games from dragging out for an eternity. At least offline, it would be nice to be able to disable the timer, but regardless, this is an excellent way to include classic Balloon Battle. Sadly, no mention has been given to Bob on Blast, Shine Thief, Shine Runners, or Renegade Roundup, meaning they all may be excluded, which would be very unfortunate if so. Considering the battle mode icon shows only coin runners and balloon battle, it seems very unlikely any will be secretly waiting. Overall, I'm not very impressed by the modes offered to play battle mode, but am happy balloon battle is back to last man standing at least. Now to discuss the battle courses, and this is where I'm very skeptical of this game's battle mode. So far, one retro battle course has been confirmed, and it is none other than Big Donut, which may beat Desert Hills as the most baffling retro pick in all of Mario Kart World, but that's debatable. The fact it is even a contest is nothing short of terrifying, however. Mario Kart 64 had two logical battle course options, with the most logical being Double Deck, since it's the only one that's never been remade before, and Block Fort, which is among the most popular battle courses in the entire series. Plus, it was remade back in DS, so it's been a while since it was remade. Even Skyscraper would have been better because it was remade back in Wii, and in my opinion is superior gameplay-wise. I do like how Big Donut has the Glider 7 added, and how Chargvarg enemies, yes, that's seriously what these guys are called, jump out of the lava, which is a nice addition, but regardless, Big Donut is a very baffling and disappointing inclusion. It turns out Big Donut is also the only regular battle course confirmed, because all of the other battle courses are nitros, and they are all associated with one of the tracks mentioned earlier. Being more specific, DK Pass, Boom Boom Meadows, Peach Stadium, Dino Dino Jungle, and Salty Salty Speedway all have a nitro battle course which appear to be designed similarly to Paris Promenade B and New York Minute B from Mario Kart Tour, which were tour battle courses that used part of the pre-existing layout from a city track and used it for a battle course. This approach makes some sense due to the massive interconnected world that Mario Kart World has, and thankfully it does appear some care is being made to pick areas that work at least decently as a battle arena, with Peach Stadium appearing to be the best example. Them being placed around the world means players can drive through them normally, which is to be expected for the Nitro battle courses, but surprisingly it even applies to Big Donut, which exists in an intermission zone as we can see here. This is a cool detail that I really like. Another thing I like about World's battle mode is off-road immunity. We already discussed earlier how this applies to free roam, but we also have proof it also applies in battle mode. Off-road immunity single-handedly increases the possible locations for potential battle courses significantly, and is an excellent addition to battle mode. It's possible we may see more battle courses, and in particular, I would be surprised if Big Donut is the only retro battle course in World, but of course, these could be the only 6 we get. Overall, we really haven't seen much about this game's battle mode so far, but based on what we have seen, I'm not impressed and I'm actually disappointed. Compared to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which offers 8 regular battle arenas and 5 ways to play each one, I really don't see why I would pick World's battle mode instead. Battle mode is easily my single largest issue with Mario Kart World based on what we've seen so far. It is common to play in teams in both battle and versus modes, and luckily it has been confirmed that players will be able to race in not only teams of 2, but also teams of 3 or 4. I'm assuming this option will apply to both versus mode and battle mode, and if so, this is really awesome, and it will serve as a welcome addition to both modes. Finally, I'm happy to say that online play is a feature feature, as you would expect, and it appears to work like previous games for the most part. The big difference is while waiting, you can explore the world and even teleport to one of your friends if one joins. This will make waiting so much better and is an awesome change. Just don't bother wasting your money for the game chat thing. Not only is the frame rate terrible, but you have to buy the camera separately and all of that. Definitely stick with Discord if you want to chat with friends online. This entire video has led up to this point, and now it is time to ask the question I imagine many were wondering as soon as they clicked on this video to watch it. Is Mario Kart World worth $80? First of all, I've heard many claim that the real question is instead, is Mario Kart World worth $50? Due to the bundle deal with the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World, where you can get a discount, so let's address that first. The Nintendo Switch 2 is normally $450, and Mario Kart World is normally $80. The bundle allows you to get both for $500, and breaking it down, the console cost remains $450, while the game is now worth $50. This means you save $30 on Mario Kart World, which is a good deal, but what people often forget to say is that the bundle comes with a couple of catches that you should be aware of. Catch number 1, the bundle is limited time. This means that if you don't buy the bundle within the limited time window, the deal will have expired and will no longer be offered. Catch number 2, the bundle only offers Mario Kart World digitally, with a physical copy of the game not being an option with the bundle deal. This means that if for whatever reason you really want a physical copy of Mario Kart World, that the bundle deal won't be an option for you. Both of these scenarios are something I think everyone who is considering the Nintendo Switch 2 and Mario Kart World should keep in mind. If you can afford the bundle deal within the limited time it is offered, and you don't mind Mario Kart World being a digital copy, then absolutely go for it. Answering the question, is Mario Kart World worth $50? And for me personally, that's a definitive yes. I'm used to games costing $60, so paying a bit less for what looks like an excellent addition to the Mario Kart series is a no-brainer for me. From everything I've seen so far and shared with y'all today, I personally believe I will consider Mario Kart World to be an S-tier Mario Kart entry once I play it, which is an honor I currently reserve for only Double Dash, Wii, and 8 Deluxe, my favorite games in the series. Mario Kart World is so ambitious in so many ways, with it having a huge interconnected world that ties every track and battle course together in a way that has never been seen before in the series. It has the largest number of players, with it doubling the previous number of 12 up to now 24. The character roster is the largest and most varied to date. The track selection looks to have good quality overall, with many of the Nitro and Retro tracks shocking me in a good way. Both Knockout Tour and Free Roam look to be excellent mode additions, with both offering a new way to play the game which enriches the experience of the player, while also enhancing the world building that connects the game together. The item additions look pretty fun overall. The various new tech added, like wall riding and rail grinding, will add lots of complexity to the game. The vehicle options look very fun, and overall this looks like it will be such an incredible Mario Kart game that I will be shocked if I place it at anything but S tier in my quest to rank every Mario Kart track when I eventually get to ranking all of its tracks. This game is absolutely worth $50 to me without any doubt in my mind, and this is a fair question for me to ask myself since I plan to get the bundle deal. If Mario Kart World is worth $50 to you, the viewer, is something you will have to answer for yourself. I've designed this video in such a way to give you as much information as possible for you to decide if you think this game is worth the cost or not, and while I have given my opinions on various things, I encourage you to do the same. Let's now entertain the catches to the bundle mentioned earlier and assume one or both apply. In a scenario where you can't buy the bundle in the time offered and miss the limited time window, or refuse to buy the bundle because you want a physical copy of Mario Kart World, we must once again ask, is Mario Kart World worth $80? And this is a much tougher sell than the $50 price tag the bundle brings to the table. Paying $80 for a video game immediately sounds crazy to me, but once again I will say yes, this game is worth $80 to me since I would buy it for $80. I described earlier how incredible this game looks to me overall, but on top of that, I am a YouTuber who makes primarily Mario Kart content like this nowadays, and I have a blast doing it. I am also also part of several Discord communities where I can hang out with people who play Mario Kart and do online play with friends, which has been amazing for me in a variety of ways. $80 is a high price tag for a video game, and I think it would be crazy to argue otherwise. But for me personally, Mario Kart World is indeed worth $80, though I see this being a very high price to ask for casual consumers. Once again, I can't answer for you whether Mario Kart World is worth $80 or not, and that is something you must answer for yourself. This has been an absolutely insane video to make, and I want to thank y'all for watching regardless of whether you skipped around to points of interest or watched the entire thing through from beginning to end. I am very excited about Mario Kart World, certainly plan to buy it, and I hope those of y'all who are deciding whether or not you want to buy it feel more comfortable in making that decision now. Mario Kart World is going to be the next incredible entry in the Mario Kart series, and I can't wait to play it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.